Oh, no, that I lose that immediately. Hi, welcome to another episode of The Unusual Suspects. My name is Rob Gargiulo. I'll be your host and participant today. Joining me are unusual suspects. We have Brandon, we have Chris, we have Connor, and we have Kelley behind the scenes. We have Jake and Andres working for us today. If you have not done so already, make sure that you like and subscribe. We have a ton of great topics. Sorry, my phone's blowing up. We have a ton of great topics coming up for you today, including we're going to talk not so much cryptocurrency, but we're going to talk, what was the term that you used for it, Connor?
There is a gold rush for biometric data, and crypto and AI are driving it as they try to turn each and every one of us into a living commodity.
So we'll cover that. We're also going to cover the Shedeur Sanders, I guess. I don't know why I said it's Saunders. Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback from Colorado University, right, Chris?
Yes, sir.
And how he fell in the draft. And, you know, Vinny has talked about this before on this podcast about there being, some sort of effort to start a race war in the United States. And what happened this past weekend in the NFL might be another example of that. Brandon is going to be talking about deep underground military bases and Catherine Austin Fitz's appearance on Tucker Carlson. And Kelley, what are you covering today?
Virginia Giuffre.
Okay, the Epstein victim, and I'll be covering the Blackout. In fact, let's just jump right into it. In case you missed it earlier this week, it happened on Monday around 12:33 p.m. Spain, Portugal, and parts of southern France lost power. Spain lost 15 gigawatts of electricity, which was over 60% of the national demand that was gone instantly. Some of the impacts because of the blackouts: the Madrid Open was suspended, transportation systems were shut down, businesses and communications were disrupted. As of right now, there is still no cause for these blackouts. In fact, they came out and they said that it was some type of astronomical disruptance. But then, they looked at the weather patterns and they looked at solar flares from space and they said, well, that couldn't have been it. It's very odd that 5 days after this happens, we still have zero answers as to what caused it. But it started making me wonder, is this a test of something that could happen here? Do you guys remember after 9/11, 2000, it was like the summer of 2001, where there was that gigantic blackout where all of New York City lost power? You were like...
I was 4.
Yeah, so you don't remember. Connor, you were pretty young then, too. Okay, I'm the only old fart on the show. Chris, you
and I was
remember that?
in New York.
You were in New York when that happened.
So, when we know that something is serious, obviously, guys, I always bring everything back to sports. When football practice gets canceled, something serious is going on. So we were in the middle of training camp, and things got canceled, everything got shut down, and we got brought off, and that's how you know it's like a serious deal there. And it was crazy. Like, everything was halted for like a full day almost.
And what's insane about that is that the power grid went down. They actually figured out and they traced it back to the grid collapsing in Ohio. Ohio was a main source of where the power that funneled to New York City came from, and they tracked it back down within days. In fact, I think the power was still out at that point, and we're talking 24 years ago. The power goes down, it's still out, and they're tracking it back and already being able to tell us what caused it here in the United States. But here we are 5 days later, and we still have no answers.
Well, so I was reading, because we had talked about this in a script meeting with Pat. I was reading about how their grid, they went green, right? So there's a lot of this digital energy that they're creating there. They're relying less on nuclear power plants. They're relying less on the energy that we
gas and oil.
Yes, that we used to build our grid on. So 5 days after they went fully green is when they had this blackout. So my suspicion is that they have, and it was a really hot day. So right when it went out, so they're drawing all this energy, and they can't make enough fast enough with this new digital green energy program that they have running. So, and that's what a lot of countries are starting to do today with this green initiative, blah, blah, blah. But we have all these raw materials that we never had this much of an issue with. You're able to track it, right? You were able to track it 24 years ago. Today, you can't, because you're like, okay, where was this magical energy coming from?
Yeah, and the problem with solar is you can't really store it. Like, it's That's why they have like the whole credit system and everything. Like when like you can't just like hold, like they're trying to build the batteries to store it, but you have to kind of like send it to other people and get credits for it when it's being used. And like places like Spain, it's not consistently sunny. It's like really stupid to have solar in some places because it's sunny like 30% of the time.
Yeah.
And Chile just had a blackout too a couple months ago, so this could be the green push, or I'm always towards the more skeptical side where it could be like testing to see how people react to stuff like this.
Well, the official theories, all right, so Spanish grid operator Red Electrica ruled out a cyber attack, but admitted the cause of the blackout from Monday is still under investigation. Portugal blamed a rare atmospheric event, which was later rejected by meteorologists, and then a suspected failure in a France-Spain power interconnector may have been the cause, but experts say that alone wouldn't have caused this type of blackout on this scale and magnitude. Right now, Spain's High Court is still investigating. Again, 5 days later, with they're investigating possible sabotage or foreign interference. But to your point about being skeptical and cautious, you have every reason to be.
Yeah.
2023 at the World Economic Forum, the now ousted founder, or I guess not found. Was he the founder? Yeah, Klaus Schwab.
Yep.
He is now ousted from his own organization over
embezzlement.
Embezzlement, like using travel.
Allegedly.
Allegedly using company funds for travel and hotel. He said in 2023 at the World Economic Forum, they did a global risk report on cyber attacks, and Klaus Schwab said there's a 93% chance of a catastrophic cyber event happening by the end 2025.
And they said specifically on the power grid too, right? Or I remember them talking about that specifically.
He also said the next crisis will be a cyber attack so severe it will halt entire societies. And then they did different simulations. They did the cyber polygon in 2020 and again in 2022. It mocked a global digital contagion mirroring COVID, focused on the supply chain disruptions and power infrastructure. And there was also a systems of cyber resilience simulation, which the end result of that warned that smart grids and renewable energy dependencies increase the risk of cascading failures for the grid. But what this comes down to is, okay, this happened in Spain, it happened in Portugal. If it is a test and they're seeing how people react, what would happen to our grid if it collapsed? Did you guys know that our grid, 70% of the United States grid, the power grid, is over 25 years old?
I thought it was like over 50 years old.
From here, it says 70% over 25 years old,
It's
under
old.
private control and poorly segmented. The U.S. power grid is split into three main regions, the East, West, and then Texas has its own. And then here's what's interesting. 90% of electricity runs through about 200 large transformers, most of which are made in China, which we're currently at war with, in a trade war, maybe more.
Yeah.
So what are you guys going to do when our grid does go out?
Well, I'm a prepper.
Are you? You're
Yeah.
a doomsday prepper.
Yeah.
So where are you going to get your energy from to run your house, or where are you going to go?
Well, I have an apartment, so normally
I'm a prepper, but I live in an apartment with Humberto and his wife. It's a two-bed. So where do you store the supplies that you're prepping?
those buckets from
The food buckets?
Yes, but I'm not going to mention the sponsor because they are not sponsoring us. So if they would, would like to, maybe, but the certain place they have food
Is
buckets.
that the one that were sent to the building?
Yes.
Okay, so
I
somebody
was getting those before that even happened, though, so I'm a long-time customer.
My brother has been buying military rations for years and has been holding on to them. He's got a basement. It's a great question to ask, Kelley, because I actually went and I asked ChatGPT, I go, what would happen if the United States were to suffer some type of blackout like this? And it actually broke down, like, day by day what would happen. So you have food buckets in your prepared.
And guns.
I also have weaponry. I'm not going to... you remember those balls that they had with the chain and the spikes that come out? I got one of those. So you come to my house, I'm going to fucking mace your face.
Well, at that point, we have to go to our neighbors and,
if you come to rob Rob after the power goes down, he will hit you with his balls.
That's... Yes. But I have also... what we have here in Florida.
You got ninja stars too?
No, don't be crazy. Just the mace. I like hand-to-hand combat. I ain't gonna throw nothing at nobody.
The mace is my weapon of choice in Assassin's Creed. So
It's the spinning one. That's what I want. I want
does
a mace.
most damage.
There's a whole website that sells like medieval weaponry. And one day my wife caught me I started putting things in shopping carts, which is the next step to purchasing. And she's like, "You're gonna spend $1,400 on medieval weapons." And I said, "You'll thank me when the grid goes down." I also have supplies. We have hurricane season here in Florida, so I always stock up. And I've always stocked up before hurricane season. My hurricane supplies one year, 2020, became my COVID supplies. When the supply chain shut down, we've witnessed this happen in our lifetime. I was okay. The only thing I didn't have was toilet paper and paper towels. I didn't ever anticipate not being able to get those. But I grabbed water, I grabbed canned food, grabbed batteries, had everything for hurricane season. COVID hit, we used those supplies. Every year we restock our our hurricane supplies. So I'm prepped and ready to go. Are the rest of you? Connor, you have a child.
Yeah.
Better
I mean,
be.
so that's a new thing that obviously complicates the plan. But I have family scattered all over South Florida. We have a plan in case, and it's not, in the event of a bad hurricane. It's like if stuff really goes down, we know where we're going to meet, how we're going to get people there. We have, water, medical supplies, and some of us have bug out bags with, clothes, stuff to go. As far as, weaponry protection, I don't have anything I'd admit to owning in front of a camera, but we have, rally points and plans of what to do. But the thing is, you guys have lived in South Florida long enough to know what it's like when there's a crisis or an evacuation. There's basically two ways out of the state. It's the Turnpike and I-95.
Yep.
And anytime there's an evacuation order for a hurricane, those turn into parking lots. So if something is going down and you're in South Florida, the best thing you can do in our estimation is stay in place.
Yeah.
Because the only thing worse than trying to ride out a hurricane in your apartment is riding one out in your car. The same would go for, power grid failures, nuclear catastrophe, foreign invasion, whatever. You don't want to be sitting stuck on the highway when all that's happening. And Brandon, you're living in an apartment similar to me, so there's only so much you can do to prep. I would recommend the first thing you do when it goes down, kill Humberto.
Yeah.
Because he will kill you and take your food in a heartbeat.
Yes. The first thing Humberto is going to do is figure out how to try and kill Brandon and steal his supplies.
I told him he's last in line to eat if that happens, though, because he has a lot of fat to lose. And no, it's like it would be a good thing for him. I said that to my last roommate too, who was much fatter than I am because I'm not fat. But like the fat people should eat last in a situation where you're having to ration food.
To Connor's point, 2017 Hurricane Irma hit. We had just bought a camper van. I still have it to this day, but the camper van was it needed brand new brakes and rotors, and you had to take it to like Camping World's RV repair center, and that was in Orlando. The Hurricane Irma at that time is coming. I had to go and pick up the van and get it back to my father-in-law's house because the Camping World repairs place was near water, and I was concerned the van would get flooded. We were on the highway going the opposite direction of all of the traffic leaving the state, and when I tell you it's miles upon miles, I'm not talking like 10 miles. I'm talking 40, 50 miles of lockdown traffic trying to get out of the state. And you ever see Independence Day when Jeff Goldblum and his dad are going the opposite way towards the aliens and everybody else? It looked just like that. We're heading towards the eye of the storm and everybody's fleeing. But you're right. If you're on those roadways, it gets locked down. You're not going anywhere. The best place to be would be to stay and put. Do you guys have supplies in case the power goes out?
Well, this is like vital news to me because, as you know, I'm new down here, so my next hurricane is going to be my first. So I appreciate that. I have probably minimal rations. I mean, weaponry we do have. I have water. I have non-perishables. But I'm not really even worried about me. I train for this. Nice. It's more like my fiance worries me. It's like same as normal. And I'm always worried about everybody else. So that would be my primary. But now I'm probably a little underprepared now that I hear what you guys are doing.
So I'm a girl. I have
Enough said.
So I don't have any weapons. However, I have a best friend whose house is the first place I go to when there's a hurricane, when there's an emergency, because he has a generator. He's taught me how to use weapons. So I have skill sets, but I don't have the materials.
I would recommend you marry this guy immediately.
Yes, I agree. I wonder if you in the chat, do you guys prepare for this stuff too? Or are we, Brandon and I, and somewhat Connor, just insane for stocking up for these things? Do you guys have supplies? How long could you go? Here's a breakdown of what would happen day by day if the power goes out. So in the short term, first 1 to 3 days, right? We don't need the rest of the slides. We're good on the rest of the slides for my presentation. Thank you, guys. The first 3 days, no ATMs or card transactions because there's no power. Gas pumps go offline. Water filtration and sewage systems start to fail. Hospitals start to rely on backup generators, which may only last 72 hours. Then we move to the medium term, days 4 through 7. you start to see food shortages due to spoilage and panic buying. You start to see a breakdown in law enforcement communications. Then you start to see mass looting, social unrest, and the breakdown of civil order. Long-term effects, we're talking weeks, 7 days, and beyond. Deaths from lack of access to medication, food, and clean water. Breakdown of all emergency services at that point. An estimated economic loss of $40 to $80 billion per day. And power-dependent cities like New York, LA, Phoenix, and Miami all become uninhabitable, leading to mass migrations from the cities and people rushing to the suburbs.
I love that you listed that stuff because that's something a lot of people overlook is medical supplies. I have a shit ton of just all this random stuff. And one of my friends is a nurse, and he also stocks up all of that stuff just for hurricane stuff. So that's something that often gets overlooked besides energy, besides food, is medical stuff, because stuff starts to happen, especially when there's looting going on, especially when there's, hospitals. You can't go to the hospital anymore.
Could you guys survive? So there's a blackout. Brandon, okay, yes. Brandon's like,
training
yes,
for
I
this
could.
my whole life.
There's a weird, okay, I haven't been training, but I've watched Walking Dead. I watched I Am Legend. I am prepared to fight zombies.
How long would you
I'm not
last?
prepared to fight my fellow man. I think that's going to be the biggest problem. If Brandon comes to my house, he's like, give me your shit or I'm going to kill you. I'm like, I like you. And then boom, I'm dead and he eats all my Fritos. I don't know how long I could last because I'm actually a nice guy. Like, I would see people, I'd be like, oh,
But if you saw your family hurting, like if you ever watched The Last of Us or played Last of Us, like if you saw your family hurting, like I feel like you would change.
go out and
I feel
conquer.
like if you
Depends
saw
on
something
which
happen
family
to Ben,
member. I've got a favorite
Ben,
of my
if
sons.
you saw something, either of your sons, if you saw something happen, I feel like you would be like,
food or
you'd kill Brandon.
something.
in
And wait,
2
Rob, you
seconds.
have Fritos in your because
You got to enjoy
No, but
something.
here's what I'm
Corn
saying.
chips.
Did you know? Worst case scenario, Fritos burn for a
hours,
crazy long time.
No,
they do.
You can light a Frito on
Come on,
fire
Rob,
and
you're
it will burn
survivalist.
for like half hour or more. The amount of oil and weird saturated stuff
See,
in
that's
there.
a problem, though. I'm a fat guy. I like my snacks. So do I light my snacks on fire or do I eat them in the cold?
Keep your family warmer.
I'm
Feed yourself.
curious how long you guys think you would last.
6 weeks.
You'd last only 6
Well,
weeks.
I mean, like, I'd thrive for 6 weeks. After that, it'd be like kind of Walking Dead type of stuff. I think.
Well, like
for-
hunter-gatherer mode at 6 weeks. So you have enough supplies to get you through 6 weeks.
Yeah, but then-
at that point, you'd have to go out into the wild.
which
and
is the fun
survive.
part.
Oh, that's the fun
Well,
part.
I have like a tactical vest that I bought a long time ago when COVID was happening, like where guns
so
fit in it
excited.
and like bullets and stuff.
All
and,
right,
like,
note to all of you watching at home:
knives.
shoot Brandon in the legs.
Yeah. Okay, there have been a few times where I felt like disclosure was happening with aliens.
Yeah.
And so there have been a few times where I've told my wife, hey, we need to go to Sam's Club and stock up because people are going to panic buy
Yeah.
when that happens. Chris, how long do you think you could last?
Well, I myself have an irrational belief in myself, so
Okay.
I can last forever. I'd be the last person on earth. The problem is I'd probably die saving somebody else. So that's kind of how I think. I've watched enough Walking Dead to.
That's what happens. The
Walking
ladies
Dead
drag
and
us down.
Yeah.
They
I
start,
was gonna say.
my heel broke as I was running in my high heels, and now I have to
Yeah.
fight zombie people.
I mean, I believe like my training in the past and my experiences have put me like mentally. I feel fine. Like
Yeah.
physically, I feel like I'm unstoppable. It's probably not true, which
Connor,
is scary. But
you have law enforcement for your dad worked in law enforcement, so I'm sure you have access to weapons. You have the
Yeah,
skill
but-
set to use those weapons.
I have, some minor training in situational awareness and stuff, but I'm also carrying around a 1-month-old child and a slow-moving wife and a mother-in-law who lives up north. So, like, I don't know. Depending on who I'm stuck with, I might not make it very far.
Kelly, you're dead if
do
you
my
don't get
best.
to your friend's house. But if you're able to get to your friend's house, how long are you surviving?
so that's the thing. I don't have anything holding me back, and I don't think I'm pretty active. I'm not going to get in anybody's way. So, and I'm pretty fast. I'm not I can't do it for a long time. Like I need to be in a lot better shape. But I feel like I could last a while, mostly because I'm a girl. Some people might take sympathy on me or help take care of me. I could learn certain other skills and get better at protecting myself. I feel like I could maybe make it for a while.
If we have enough supplies, we could get a compound, and then we could have a
And
harem
I don't use
of hoes to come live on that compound.
I don't use as much supplies
Exactly.
and resources as guys do.
Okay. So you'd probably be dead though if you don't get to your friend's house. So we have
I
to.
did for sure. I need to go to his house first and learn.
Kelly
learn
is
the
missing
ways.
the one resource that would help women survive in a time of crisis, which is a man.
Well, all right, cool.
I need a man.
Well, all right, we're all doomed. So make sure you stock up on your supplies. Like my mom said, one day when the Chinese invade, you're gonna have to eat your dog, and I'm never gonna eat my dog, Oliver. I love him, so I have supplies. Fuck off, China. All right, next up, we're going to Brandon. Brandon on underwater bases or
Underground and water.
Oh,
and
okay, I've never
and
heard
in
of this.
space.
So I saw clips of the interview
Just
with
just clips.
just clips of the interview with Catherine Austin
Perfect.
Fitz and Tucker Carlson. But I have a feeling that this is what your segment's about. Brandon, take it away.
Oh yeah, it is. So this lady, Catherine Austin Fitz, right here, she's been talking about. She's been the pioneer of something I've been talking about, interested in for like a year. So remember, I was talking about the 35 trillion that the government can't account for, like a couple months ago.
Yes.
So she's been looking into that. The reason that's public knowledge is because of her and a few professors that did research on it, and she kind of makes the case that this money, like our debt, basically, it sounds like it wasn't even debt. Like this money was taken away from us, and they call it debt. So just to put this into perspective, $1 million, if you were to stack $100 bills on top of each other, they're like the size of a chair. $1 billion of $100 bills stacked up is the size of a building. $1 trillion would touch the moon, but 35 trillion, which is what we're missing, can't account for. You could cover the entire surface of the world, and it would be 27 miles high with $100 bills, 35 trillion.
So it's a lot of money.
Oh, like unfathomable amount. Like I'm trying to make like
That you can't just... It can't just go missing and nobody knows.
It's going to
where
show
at.
up somewhere. Like, there's going to be like a ripple effect if that money goes and gets spent somewhere else. So I have a few clips here that were like the most compelling parts of it. And then like, I'm sure it's might go over some people's heads, so I'll unpack it, but let's roll these real quick.
I love this woman.
Between fiscal 1998 and fiscal 2015, there were 21 trillion of undocumentable adjustments in the U.S. government. If you go to our website, missingmoney.solera.com, we have years and years of documentation, including the government financials that show this. And so the question is, where's all this money going? And one of the things I've looked at in the process of looking at where all this money is going is the underground base and city infrastructure and transportation system that's been built. And
I'm sorry?
yes.
What?
So we have built an extraordinary number of underground bases and supposedly transportation systems. Some of these are some of these are documented as part of the national security infrastructure. I think there are many more. So
In the United States?
in the United States, and all over the world. But from 2021 to 2023, I took one of the smartest subscribers in the Solera Report network, and he and I spent 2 years collecting all the data and all the allegations on underground bases. And then we systematically went through and tried to estimate our guess. This is totally a guess of how many underground bases, both underground in the United States, but also underground under the ocean around the United States. And our estimate was 170.
So this topic is a crazy one because like there's not a lot of people that talk about the whole underground base thing. They call them DUMBs, deep underground military bases. There was a guy named Phil Schneider one time that was like the guy for you. Ever hear of him?
I feel like is he a radio guy?
He was, and
he
died under mysterious circumstances.
They always do.
Yeah.
Just like the guy that wrote Beyond a Pale Horse, Bill Cooper.
Yep,
Got
and-
shot in a firefight with IRS agents. Wasn't that? Like
Yeah.
they came after him for taxes and then he got shot in his own property.
And Gary Webb, Dark Alliance, suicide,
Yep.
2 got shot wounds to the head.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they always go down like that. But yeah, nobody talks about or knows about the deep underground military bases. But I've heard for a long time that there's literally miles deep underground bases, and then there like you could literally take a high speed train from California to New York in like 5 minutes underground. So like it's possible like there's that degree of infrastructure under the ground, and that's like I can't think of anywhere else that money would have gone except for maybe if we were injecting it straight into China. Because what happened was
So first of all, there would need to be hundreds and thousands of people that would need to build that. So why wouldn't we
Contractors.
know about it?
NDAs.
There's no freaking way thousands of people have built this and haven't said a word.
You
Well,
say
some
that, but-
people say things.
Oh, yeah. Here's the thing. I think about this a lot because it comes down to like, at the end of the day, everybody's got a mortgage. Everybody's got rent. Everybody's got bills to cover.
Right.
If you're getting paid by the government and they're like, listen, you're going to build this underground city. In order for you to stay silent, not tell anybody, we're going to pay you.
Yeah.
But the second that we find out that you tell anybody, that payment stops. Are you risking life, a future? Are you risking
Pat signal.
Yeah, the pat signal. Are you risking your future livelihood, your future income to tell people about deep underground military bases, everybody's going to come out and say you're crazy, you're full of shit anyway. No one's going to believe you. So what's the upside? You blow a whistle on something no one's going to believe, and then you end up losing all of the revenue that's going to come your way from keeping quiet?
Exactly.
Somebody's not going to care.
Well, there are people that say things like this. Like Tucker goes on to saying this thing. He's had people tell him in the past before that like they have like built these like mile deep elevators and stuff, and it's compartmentalized. So it's like one person does the elevators, one person does the tunnels, one person does the trains, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not like one person doing the entire job.
Have you seen the new show Paradise that came out on Hulu? I think it was.
I heard about it.
No.
Yeah, but they do the same thing, but they build it in a mountain. It was like very 100. But they built it in a mountain, and I stopped watching it because I got mad at the 5th episode. But they built an underground thing in the mountain, and they all run away there. And to your point, they do say like, "Hey, you're gonna be working on this. You're gonna be working on this. It will provide for your family if."
Yeah.
You keep quiet.
And they've done this before. It's called the Raven Rock Mountain Complex. It's known as Site R or the Rock. It is a U.S. military installation with an underground nuclear bunker near Blue Ridge Summit, Pennsylvania. They often refer to it as the underground Pentagon.
Yep.
The bunker has emergency operations centers for the United States Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps.
And then you got the the Denver airport that went like billions of dollars over budget. It took like way longer to build than expected.
Have you ever been to the Denver
Oh,
airport?
yeah, demonic.
There are these weird paintings. So I went there and visited my friend, and I flew into that airport, and I'm like, let me see how weird this is, or if it's just internet lore. And you start walking around, you're like, these are weird paintings, and there are weird and symbolic things inside statues and stuff.
I went there just for the airport.
I became aware of Catherine Austin Fitts. Wait, you flew all the way to Denver just to go to the airport?
Yeah, and then came back. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I was going to say, that's a so I became aware of Catherine Austin Fitts in 2020. She put out a documentary called Planet Lockdown. It was at the height of COVID.
Yeah.
And what she was talking about was COVID being used as a way to control the populace. And at first I'm like, this lady's full of crap. And then I watched the entire video and I'm like, wow, everything she's talking about in this video is actually going on. And it started to make me question the actual COVID narrative. And that's when I started going down that rabbit hole. So for me, Catherine Austin Fitts is part of the reason why I got red-pilled.
Oh,
Like,
nice.
before that, I was a blue, commie, liberal cuck.
Oh.
Now I'm a red cuck. I'm still a cuck, but I'm on the opposite end. But it's her that led me down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, and she's a serious lady too. Like she's not just some random person. She worked for the Housing and Urban Development under George Bush. She works in investment banking. She like does financial management stuff. And so she's a serious lady. She knows what she's talking about. And the reason that this started in 1998, like she said, is because the government fundamentally changed a constitutional law. So before 98, they were required to show exactly what they were spending money on based on what Congress appropriated. But after that, like during Clinton, like of course, like Clinton really like pillaged us with a lot of the changes that happened during then. They made it so that they don't have to report accurately what they're spending money on, so they can make all these account adjustments now. So we don't know where 35 trillion went to exactly. And somebody questioned her, and they did like a thorough report on it in 2015. And like the guy's like, yeah, no, it's 100%. We don't know where this money went.
Do you know what the military budget is per year for the United States?
870 billion.
870 billion.
Yeah.
So, okay. What is 35 trillion divided by 870 billion? So
Like
you're talking
40.
about like maybe
40 something.
so 40 times the military budget per year went missing, and nobody has
It's our
any idea
national
where
debt.
it's at.
Think about that. It's our national debt. Every year it's the same. And this goes back to I have an episode coming out today about this. This goes back to the 2.3 trillion that was announced before 9/11. It's the same measurement. Remember that?
Yes, Donald Rumsfeld came out on September 10th and said that they could not account for $2.3 trillion that went unaccounted for,
And then definitely a plane hit the side of the building where they were doing all the investigations into that.
And so that's
is that true?
Yeah.
I know that. Okay.
No, precisely.
Okay, that's a
Watch my-
complicated question.
Yeah.
A, was it a plane? B, did it actually hit where that information was being stored?
The second one, 100%. The first one, I think likely. I think likely it was a missile.
More than likely, you think it was a missile or a plane?
A missile.
Yeah,
most likely.
I started off skeptical about it, but the more I've looked at it, the more we've discussed it on the show, the more 100% convinced I am there was no plane at the Pentagon on 9/11.
Yeah.
There's nothing that resembles a plane in the wreckage. We've talked about the terrain, the pull up you'd have to do to go along. Also,
I understand. We'll go back to that for a second. Okay, if there wasn't a plane on 9/11 that hit the Pentagon, then does that also open up to were there planes that hit World Trade Center 1 and 2 on 9/11 as well? Or were they other types of devices, drones, holograms?
We can ask
Holograms
those
are
questions
tough 'cause
that
there's
could
multiple
completely
angles.
And there's people that filmed it on their
That
own
day.
video cameras
Yeah.
that day.
Although you
So
can get
that's a tough
into
one.
why the feds rounded up every available video they could find, held it for months at a time, then returned it to the original owners before the people could actually watch what they had
Well,
filmed.
they
But I
did the
think
same
the-
thing
the
with
mo-
the Pentagon and the security cameras. They took
Yeah.
like 90 different.
But
Okay, we're
most
getting
of
off
the
track. Go back
the more
to your
important
World
question
Trade
though
Center
is
building
the
in the
why.
world.
The more it's the why. So that was like the origin of this problem, and this is what it's turned into. So like that 2.3 trillion is the same thing as that 35 trillion today. So at the time, 2.3 trillion had went where it wasn't supposed to go. Now by today, 35 trillion has gone where it's not supposed to go.
Because they've continued to build on that 2.3
Yeah.
trillion that was missing on 9/10.
Yeah, and that's our national debt.
Okay.
So you see what I'm saying here?
Yep.
That like our national debt wasn't spent towards stuff that like, oh, we need to spend on. It was like taken from us, and they called it national debt.
Yeah, and if
So-
if you want to dismiss the whole notion of massive underground construction and stuff, look no further than the elites that we know are doing this. Mark Zuckerberg is building this massive underground bunker in Hawaii. Jeff Bezos is doing like what Kelley talked about, converting the inside of a mountain into his giant clock thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
counting down for like what is it, like 1,000,000 years or something?
She's calling it a breakaway society of like so the elites gave up on America. She's saying, and I think that's what the next clip shows here. If you want, I have two more. If you guys want to click the next one.
In October of 1997, that's the beginning of the 1998 fiscal year, huge, enormous amounts of money started disappearing from the U.S. government. And literally, by the time of 9/11, there was 4.1 trillion missing from DOD and HUD. And if you remember, the day before 9/11, Donald Rumsfeld stood up and basically said, he did a press conference and he said, there's 2.3 trillion in undocumentable adjustments last year at DOD, and we're missing money. And it's, if you look at the history of the black budget, the sort of secret financing that the government uses for secret and classified projects, that pot of money had grown and grown and grown, and it had become very dysfunctional to try and get that money. Mortgage fraud, I believe, was one of the biggest sources, and that's why what I was doing sort of went into the heart of the problem. But the Patriot Act and that whole process was very successful at moving a lot more money onto the budget. In other words, it made it much easier to get enormous amounts of money for the national security state.
So it hid what they did in the past and created the circumstances for them to do more of what they were doing in the future.
Because all of a sudden, because there was no Patriot Act prior to 9/11, so that money, you had to be more transparent.
Yeah.
You can't hide it behind the cloak of, because now, today, even today, when we ask about, hey, let's release these files. Well, it's a national security issue. We can't do that. I never heard national security issue prior to 9/11.
Right.
But as soon as 9/11 happens, Patriot Act happens, everything becomes national security. Now we can hide that money behind the national security threat under the Patriot Act, so nobody knows where it's
What
going.
a beautiful thing. Like, imagine if you're like in your like marriage or something, like you could say it's a matter of national security.
Oh, I'm going to use that.
That won't go over well.
Like I wanted to be in the CIA for a while because it seemed like they are on top of the world. They could do whatever they want. Like the stuff they've done in the past.
Did she get more into how the mortgage fraud played into them hiding that money?
Yes.
Because that,
the
for me-
2008.
well, okay, quickly, but
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
want to derail your
Yeah.
segment. I know time is limited. How did the mortgage fraud lead to them embezzling $30 trillion worth of money to build these underground military bases?
The majority of it was defense, but a portion of it's through like housing and urban development. Like she says in one of these things that the Housing and Urban Development Fund was like a candy store for the CIA. So because it's really easy to do fraud there, like they have these projects where they'll be like, oh yeah, this house costs like $700,000 to build. We're gonna build, or this neighborhood, we're gonna build it for like underprivileged people, but it's like a just empty plot of land when you actually go
So
there.
it wasn't the actual people committing mortgage frauds that were purchasing the homes. It was the
No.
government.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
continue.
So I have one more clip. I forget what it is, but let's play it and then we'll put a bow on this.
So you believe, going back 30 years, that people in the U.S. government and in the finance world wanted money for
Yeah, it wasn't U.S. government. It was the central banking. If you look at the group of people who meet through the BIS.
I can't hear.
What's that?
Turn up a little bit.
The BIS is the Bank of International Settlements, and it's the central bank of central banks.
Where is that located?
It's in Basel, Switzerland, and it has 63 of the most powerful central banks as its members, and the New York Fed and the Fed are both shareholders. They became shareholders in 1994.
In one sentence, what's the purpose of the Bank of International Settlements?
Okay, so there are two things you need to know about the Bank of International Settlements.
I'm not sure my brain's big enough for this, but keep going.
It is.
Okay.
It has sovereign immunity.
What does that mean?
It's above the law.
It's its own country.
Right. It's its own country. It has its own police force. And essentially, other than one of its staff being in a car accident or, minor things, no one has the legal authority to move against it.
Move what?
Okay, and a sovereign
Move
immunity.
against
That's
the
number
Bank of
one.
International Settlement.
Number two, it can move money and hold it on its on its balance sheet and manage money secretly.
Boom.
So if I want to, and I'm grossly oversimplifying, if I want to steal 21 trillion from the U.S. government and park it on the balance sheet of the BIS, it can move it anywhere in the world and it can keep it on its balance sheet secretly.
So bingo, you got that?
No, I don't. So there's 63 banks working in collaboration with the government to hide this missing money.
So
No, all wrong.
No.
All right, go ahead.
So you know how we have a Federal Reserve in America?
Yeah.
Right. So there's a Federal Reserve for the world. It's called the Bank of International Settlements. It's the most powerful bank in the world. Okay.
Okay.
So she just said right there that it has sovereign immunity. This bank was created right after World War I to basically like facilitate international payments, and it's done a lot of dirty stuff, and it has all these special rights. Like it has sovereign immunity the way that like a casino does. So it's like its own country. Like nobody can do anything against it. It's
Got
in
it.
Switzerland, so that's how you know it's serious business.
So that's where they're parking the money for the 35 trillion
Yeah,
to build these
'cause-
bases.
Right, because it's like the Vatican, where you don't have the right to like look at it, look what it has on its books. So like the Vatican and the Bank of International Settlements are the best place to like hide dirty money or to hide money you don't want people to see.
So if you're building these deep underground military bases, you're obviously, if they are building them, they're building them for a reason.
Well, a lot of are provable, but then some are speculative.
Well, I've seen the videos of people show it like, hey, look, this is a deep, like there's
You see Underground Missouri or Missouri Underground?
Is that where the trucks go?
Yeah.
I've seen these videos of where these semi trucks go and park underneath. And what I've been told is the reason they park underneath is because the things that they have inside the truck are refrigerated. It's colder underground. So they
Then why are
park
there
them.
men with guns outside of it?
Yeah, they might be very in demand items. I don't know. But I've seen these videos before and I've always chalked them up to, okay, maybe they are storing those there. But so you're saying there's 170 of those worldwide that they've created.
She's saying they confirmed 170, then there could be more. So 170 allegedly are confirmed according to her. And like when you look these up, there's not a lot of them that we could find easily. So it's very interesting because like she talked about the underwater too. Like remember the movie The Megalodon?
Yes.
So
The Meg?
Yeah, the
With
Meg.
Jason Statham? Yeah.
Super realistic. So that underground structure they had in there, like she's describing stuff like that as being built. And like you think about it, you see these ships pop up out of water and they call them aliens. Like, oh, they're aliens under the ocean. Like maybe we have underwater facilities like where we have ships that could go into those things. Like maybe it's all us.
All right. Before we move on to the next segment, does anybody here besides Brandon and I so you're on board? You believe these exist?
What exactly?
A deep underground military
Oh,
bases.
yeah.
I agree.
Where else would 35 trillion go?
I don't know.
1,000%.
You believe it as
Yeah,
well?
absolutely.
I have no reason to doubt that it could exist.
Kelley? No.
Where to go?
I wish it did.
So where'd the
but-
35 trill go?
I mean, we spend money like it's freaking water. Like I'm sure we've given it away to somebody we're not supposed to, done it for some other nefarious things, but I feel like we would know more about something underground.
So
than
is the
we would know.
skepticism from your point that no whistleblowers have come out and talked about it?
Yes.
Well, they
How
have, which
is
is why we're
somebody-
talking about it right now.
Well, one woman, Catherine Austin Fitz, and she wasn't in there mining and building the thing. She was doing the financial records and finding it. All right, so everybody but one person believes. Do you at home, do you believe that 35 trillion missing money from the United States government has gone to build these deep underground military bases?
Another theory that makes a lot of sense because like it is a fact that this money has to show up somewhere. Like if you like when we printed money in 2020, it showed up in the stock market, obviously, showed up in the housing market, obviously, right? So like when you put a lot, when you create a lot of money, it's going to show up somewhere. China, their GDP takes off like a rocket starting in '98. You know, so from 98 cents, then their GDP went up 20 trillion.
So is your theory that we gave the money to China and had China build these deep underground military bases? Then why? Okay, so what is it?
Point?
So well, a lot of the time, like for all of history, we've propped up an enemy to justify military spending. Like the Cold War, we were giving money we were subsidizing the Soviet Union to keep them like a realistic threat. Like they would have shriveled up and died like for the majority of the Cold War if we weren't giving them money. So you know we were acting like we were in this nuclear arms race against them, but we were giving them money so they could feed their population. But then when they crumbled in '91, we didn't have an enemy, and like the military budget was like.
Sounds dumb.
It is dumb to give your enemy food. But we did.
sounds
But,
really
but we
dumb.
did. Our government. Well,
I don't believe it.
no,
Everybody
it's
hate me,
it's
but I don't
it's
believe it.
documentable. Like it's a fact that FDR was giving the Soviet Union
Yeah,
money.
then, but now.
No, throughout the Cold War.
Yeah, because the United States would never in the modern day give money to both sides of a foreign conflict in order to
Did you ever see that
military spending.
Did you ever see that
How
photo of
many
the
trillions
rockets
is that?
going at the Iron Dome and then the Iron Dome firing rockets back and it says my tax dollars, also somehow my tax dollars. That is the Middle East.
But so we need an enemy, though. Basically, we didn't have a strong, realistic threat of an enemy after Russia collapsed. So we need to prop up China.
No,
Okay,
'cause
we beat China. Who's next? The aliens?
That's what I'm saying.
We beat China.
If we beat China.
Oh,
If we beat them in this trade war.
No, we found
Or it turns into something worse.
we found the perfect target in the Middle East, and the problems never end there.
maybe domestic terrorism.
Yeah, we created ISIS. We backed the Houthis. We prop up basically every foreign terrorist organization that exists in the Middle East because it keeps causing problems to give us reasons to go back there.
Got it. All right. Well, we have to move on. Thank you for the segment. We'll move on from potential war to race war. The NFL, the draft happened last weekend, and Shedeur Sanders, the son of primetime Deion Sanders, fell from all reports. My entire social media feed on Saturday was about how Shedeur Sanders was the victim of racism, that the NFL and its owners had colluded against this young, strong black male because he was a young, strong black male, and they wanted to prove a point. What that point was, we don't know. Chris, take it away.
Yeah, so as you said, the NFL draft concluded last week. It ended on Saturday. And the biggest story, one that seems to sort of have superseded the whole draft, is this Shedeur Sanders story. Now, he's one guy of 250 plus that was going to get drafted. And, I mean, I know it's a big story because friends and family of mine who don't care about sports are calling about it. I've had a chance to go on a couple of different news networks that have nothing to do about sports and talk about it. And it's pretty incredible. So, yeah, he had the most unprecedented slide prospect has ever had that I can remember. He was a projected top 3 pick. Now, what that means is you get picked in the top 3. The draft now, let me break the draft down for you a little bit. It's a 3-day event now, right? The first round happens on a Thursday night. Second and third round happen on Friday, and then 4 through 7 happen on Saturday.
That hasn't always been the case.
No, they've changed this draft a bunch of times because the NFL needs to find a way to profit and monetize everything.
I remember in high school and college, we would get together and watch the draft, and it was like a one day. It started on a Saturday. We'd order a bunch of pizzas. We'd have cases of Keystone Light, and we just hang out and drink and watch the draft. Now it's turned into a 72-hour extravaganza.
It's a spectacle now, like anything else in the NFL. So the way I remember it, the earliest is rounds 1, 2, 3 happening on one day and 4, 5, 6, 7 happening on the second day. But now because the NFL has its own network, now they sell tickets. So they pick a host city every year. It used to always be at Radio City in New York. This year was Green Bay, Wisconsin. So in the middle of Green Bay, Wisconsin, they sold 130,000 tickets for people to come live. And over the 3-day period, 20 million people watched the event on TV. So, yeah, so it's a story that's getting a ton of play, and it's interesting, right? Because what everybody wants to say, and I'll give you one guess what everyone thinks it is. Say it with me.
Racism.
Awesome.
Isn't this the guy that, I don't know if it's real or not, allegedly, is this the guy that they were saying was playing Catan during all of his interviews with these
All right, so that I'm going to get there.
Playing what?
Catan.
So this is how it is.
It's
So
an amazing
Settlers of
game,
Catan?
board game.
So here's the
I didn't know
deal.
either.
So let me just like paint a picture for you. Over the first 2 rounds, there's 32 teams in the NFL. So over the first 2 rounds, there's 64 picks. 59 of these 64 picks are what we would classify as people of color. So in this racist draft, where the number 1 overall pick was, in fact, a black quarterback, it seems kind of far-fetched to me. As Kelley stated, now, as we've gotten further into it, people are starting to come out and talk about it. And Shedeur Sanders, so what I wanted to just sort of talk about what the slide is. First, I just want to back it up for a second. And can we play a clip real quick from Skip Bayless? He's sort of like a sports media, like lightning rod. And he's been in the sports media game for probably like 50 years now. And this is what Skip Bayless had to say. He's a former ESPN and FS1 personality. Go on, Skip.
So if it's not football, what is it? Are there racial undertones here? Racist undertones? You be the judge. Racism is so hard to sort of grasp and prove, but it just stinks. It smells. of racist undertones.
Yeah, we can stop that there.
Of too
I
many
always
white
hated
people.
that guy.
We can stop it there. And now we could just play Ryan Clark, who's next. And he's just a couple of seconds. And if you know what Ryan Clark's MO is, it's sort of the same deal. But here we go. Ryan Clark.
But we all know that they plant these certain reports or they say these certain things, and you do hear the word arrogant. Why is he arrogant?
We could fast
because he
forward a little
won't
if we get to
walk
maybe
into the
about
meeting
45 seconds.
and bend the knee, or he won't the same way a coach or an offense coordinator would, because that's what he's going to have to do. And I've had conversations with Shedeur Sanders, and he can do that. We all know that it's not just about him being Deion Sanders' son. It's about the bravado he carries. It's about the fact that he looks a certain way. It is about the fact that the color of his skin sometimes at that position can be questioned.
All right, we can stop
and I believe
that. He was supposed to be number 3 overall.
Oh, wow.
I fully agree.
That's
I
why-
can't wait for the.
Say it one more
How
time.
many quarterbacks did I take him before him?
About 6.
Oh, wow.
Now, the weird thing is now that's cost him $44 million in contract.
I fully agree with all this. I can't wait to see the time when black people will finally be on the up and up in the NFL, and
Yeah.
they finally get them.
So-
Of course I am.
So-
The NFL is minority white at
Yeah,
this
that
point.
makes no
I
sense.
think almost
to me.
every sport at this point is a minority.
Except hockey.
So what Ryan
That's true.
So what Ryan Clark is saying at the end of that clip is obviously, and there has been a historical, I don't want to say prejudice, but there was a time where it was widely thought that a black quarterback couldn't really lead your team far. They almost made it more like they can't comprehend the playbook and stuff like that. But at this point, currently, 20 of 32 NFL teams now have black quarterbacks starting as of
really?
week 1.
2/3 have a black quarterback.
Yes.
Yeah, and in some form or fashion, like a Mahomes who's part black, a Russell Wilson who's part black, Tua Tagovailoa who's of Samoan descent, somebody who's a person of color, not a white quarterback.
Wait.
Yeah.
I was reliably informed by Colin Kaepernick that the
here we
NFL draft is the equivalent of a slave auction.
Yes.
So why are all these black men clambering over each other to be earlier in the slave auction than
Kaepernick's
Well,
piece of
this
shit.
is the same Colin Kaepernick who 8 years after his last snap makes sure once a year to have him and his girlfriend tell us that he's ready when a team is ready to bring him in.
Of course.
But yeah, Colin Kaepernick's he's laughable. But yeah, so at this point, what's the real reason is what everybody's asking. And there's a bunch of them. So we talked about Prime, that's Deion Sanders. Probably he's widely thought of as the greatest cornerback in NFL history. He's now the current head coach at the University of Colorado. And he's this is what Deion said heading up to the draft. This could be why some teams may have been a little hesitant to go all in on Shedeur.
A couple teams that I won't allow him to play for. Whoa. This is my profession. I know what's behind the curtain. We ain't got to get back there for me to understand what's not prominent for my son. I'm not doing it. Ain't
And
no
if
way
he
in the world.
doesn't listen to you?
Who? No, you must mean owners, like not my son.
Have you told him privately who you would like for him to play for?
It's not like who I would like for him to play for. It's
So what he's getting at there is, and let me just slow it down. You have to understand that these NFL organizations are $10 billion businesses, and when you give the keys to the castle to your quarterback, you're investing everything in him. Shedeur Sanders picked where he was supposed to be is about a $50 million investment and 5 years of this organization's full, focus. So if you come in as a guy who comes in with noise, what NFL teams don't want is that. They want harmony. It's hard enough to win games in that league without these distractions. So that's what I tend to think the Deion Sanders thing. And then another thought that people are having is his name has come across for a couple of NFL head coaching jobs lately. So NFL head coaches and GMs are saying now, if I bring Shedeur Sanders in early, we invest a lot of money in him, and things start to go bad, my job's at risk. They're just going to bring his father in, who's his coach prior. So why would teams line up to hire their potential replacement? So that's become a big thing amongst teams. And
What would you say his frequency is for running versus throwing? Because I always say the guys who default to running first are always end up flailing out.
Well, see, that's the thing. So Shedeur Sanders, despite his dad being one of the most fantastic athletes in American sports history, if you know the story of Deion Sanders, one of the fastest 40 times in combine history, like they say 4.21. It's like a thing of legend.
Jeez.
Then he played Major League Baseball. So he's the only athlete ever to score a touchdown and hit a home run in the same day. He played a game in the afternoon with the Falcons. He flew to a Major League Baseball game and hit a home run in the evening. So he's a phenomenal athlete. The thing about Shedeur Sanders is he does not possess these same athletic qualities. He's He's less of a runner, more of a thrower. But if you really dig into his numbers, his completion percentage is high, but he's got 150 screen passes. So things like that sort of work against him. So it's very easy for somebody who's not really well versed in this to see the numbers and say, like, look at his completion percentage. Look how many passes he's completed. And it's like, yeah, but these are 2-yard dink and dunkers, which a lot of people don't really aren't really familiar with.
Is this just another, because it seems like this comes right off the bat. It's very interesting what's going on right now in American media when it comes to race issues. You come off the unfortunate and horrific death that Austin Metcalf suffered at the hands, allegedly, of Carmelo Anthony. Yeah. Then you look at this where they start pinning whites against blacks with that instance right away. Well, Austin Metcalf shouldn't have gone up to him and told him to leave. There are reports that there was a tussle beforehand. Then you look at this. Everybody's pointing out that it's race. It's not a matter of whether or not the kid's good or not. Then you look at the video that came out yesterday of the woman in, I believe it's in Minnesota. Is that where it is? Shiloh something? I don't know her name.
Shiloh Hendricks.
According to the reports, this woman is at a playground with her child. An African-American child comes up to it, or black, I guess. We're African-American. They're not from Africa. They live here in America.
Well,
right? So
the guy who took the video was from Somalia.
Okay,
so it's actually an African.
Okay, so a black child comes up to her child, steals something from her child, and then she proceeds to call the child the N-word. That doesn't get captured on film. What gets captured on film by the Somalian that you're mentioning,
who is allegedly a sex offender who had no business being near a playground filming kids, but nobody's asking that question.
Of course, yeah, I saw those reports as well online. That's how it's being framed. But then it became this woman she's in the right, because then the guy starts filming and asks her, did you call that child the N-word? And she says right on camera, full hard ER from the N to the R. She says the word, if he's going to act like that, then I'm going to call him that. Oh, wow. And then that woman apparently went into hiding, and they created a Give, Send, Go for me. The last I looked, it was over 150,000. But then the argument online becomes, was she right to use the N-word? And now people are fighting about that. It feels like these things keep getting put in our faces where they're trying to start some type of race disagreement, and that could escalate into a war between white people and black people.
Look at the money behind it, too. Like, the Tides Foundation's pumping money into the foundation of that guy that's saying all the stupid shit about Austin Metcalf's dad. The guy that's, like, the random press conference guy for the Anthony family.
The attorney that's representing Carmelo Anthony's family.
So he's, like, a former criminal that, like, beat up a kid, beat up a girl before. Like, that's a documented thing. And he started this weird foundation that, like, represents black causes, gets money from the Tides Foundation, which is, like, the shell company for the Open Society. So that's Soros' foundation.
It just feels like they keep putting these racial issues in front of everybody, like it's like throwing wood into the fire and hoping that it goes off.
And Alex Jones has been talking about this for a long time, that like they're trying to like create a situation where the police forces or military is like used like in a violent way against black people, and they're going to like frame it as Trump did this or that. So I don't know if they're trying to like incite it to like create a response from the police, like if things get like out of control. But have you heard Jones saying that?
No, but I do remember the George Floyd protests and then the burning down of CVS's because for some reason that helps establish that Black Lives Matter. I remember this came out during the 2024 presidential campaign. Gwen Waltz, the wife of Tim Waltz, said that she'd like to leave her windows open. She could smell the burning stores around her as a sign of symbolic justice.
You didn't see that?
Oh, yeah.
She said that?
Yeah, she's insane. Her husband's a wacko, and their children are both retarded as well. Go listen to, did you see what the daughter said about people running yesterday? That running is a privilege that only certain people get. Motherfucker, take shoes. That's what it takes. The privilege to run is shoes. I've got
Not even look at Africa.
Yeah. What did you think nobody ran until
all the time without shoes?
Until
that is true.
You know, Douglas P. Shoe
Like hunting
invented
tigers.
the shoe in 1804, and nobody was allowed to run before that.
But not everything is. If you make everything a racial issue, if everything is racist, then nothing becomes racist.
Yeah.
Then you lose all credibility every time you go, that guy's racist. Well, you said everything's racist. And like, there's a guy around here that complains about everything. He complains about everything. From thumbnails to the distribution to the episodes themselves. He bitches about everything. So when he bitches, I don't listen because he bitches about everything. But if somebody were to speak up, let me think of who around here doesn't really complain a lot. Tony or Booker. He never complains. If Tony is to complain about something, I listen. You know why? Because Tony never complains. So when you continue to yell about racism, you lose my attention. I don't care. You always yell that stuff. But when somebody speaks out that never speaks out, that's when I'm like, all right, I'm listening. Go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say.
It's a good analogy.
Getting back to this story.
Yeah.
Is it true that he was playing Catan during these interviews? I want to know.
All right, so this is the next part. So when we really dig into what Shedeur Sanders, how he handled this whole thing, you got to understand this is a job interview for these guys. You prepare your entire life for this. So there's obviously your game film is going to always be your most important, but then we have something called the NFL Combine, and it's almost like a 3-day 360-degree full-on job interview. It could be interviews with teams all hours of the day and night, and they try to make you as uncomfortable as possible. And then there's a physical component to it, right? So it's the most important thing other than our game film that we can, do to sort of leave a great impression with these teams coming in. So at the Combine, Shedeur Sanders was tasked with, by teams that were rumored to be interested in him. They said, Shedeur, do us a favor. We're going to give you our playbook. We want you to study it, and we want you to come in with some form of grasp on it, because they're going to take us up on the board and make sure that conceptually we can break these things down and we can think on the fly and sort of like figure out things quickly.
That all sounds normal.
And there was an article that came out. If we can show the article, and it's this here, is that teams brought him in with the hope that he would take the time and do the homework and study the playbook, and he came in completely underprepared.
A top NFL draft team requested Shedeur Sanders study his playbook for an interview season, and he arrived unprepared.
And by unprepared, there's formations and personnel groups and plays that you need to know. That's the one thing I learned in the NFL the short time I was there. The most incredible thing is how this playbook is this thick, and every day things go out, and every day new things come in. On top of that, other teams were talking about how he almost sandbagged teams that he didn't want to go to. Ooh. So he would come to the interviews, and when they would ask him questions, he would talk about, no, you guys got to be prepared for me and my arrival and when I come. It's like there are few and far between talents that are good enough to be able to carry themselves like that, and a team still invest that fully in you. And Shedeur Sanders, despite being a good player, he definitely should have been drafted earlier than he was, in my opinion. But he wasn't that good.
So he must have underperformed in the interviews, like you said.
So he underperforms in the interviews. And then what a lot of the top guys do is they choose not to perform physically at the Combine, but it's another opportunity missed when he chose, I'm not going to throw at the Combine, I'm going to throw at my pro day later, which isn't quite as strange, but it's another opportunity he had to impress the teams, and he chose not to.
I'm surprised that based off the interviews that his dad did, then he didn't act better in these interviews, and he didn't go all out, and he didn't act with some sort
that's
of
why
he's been kind of cocky.
The racism angle is so stupid, because when they throw that out there, now everybody's sitting around, whether it's on ESPN or even here, we're talking about racial issues. Well, what you should really be having a conversation about is the consequences of pride,
Isn't
the
this a
importance
team
of humility.
sport?
And
It's a team sport.
Who comes into a job interview? Because that's what this is. This is a glorified job interview for someone who's going to get paid millions of dollars to play a game on TV. That's what football is. It is a game. You were sitting down at a job interview and saying, yeah, I don't really care what I can bring to this organization. What can you do to support me?
Well, the interesting thing is,
the conversation
to piggyback on Kelley's question, is I spoke earlier about how there's a very, very, very small cast who can go in there and just act a certain way and be so physically gifted or just football savvy.
And
those are the whites that can act that way, right?
Unfortunately, though, his father was one of those few, so that's where he's getting this example from. There's this famous story about Deion going to the Combine, and the story is something along the lines of he's walking past the room with all of the scouts in it, and they say, Deion, come sit down with us. And before he sits down, he goes, let me ask you a quick question. Before I sit down, what number are you guys picking? And let's say they said hypothetically 5th. He goes, I'm cool. I'm not going to be there then. And he walks away. So it's like that is the example that he's been fed.
One of the things, so Deion, in that clip that you were playing, it mentioned Deion telling his son what teams he didn't want him to go to.
Right.
And on the caption above, it said the Browns. So did Deion not want him to go to the Browns?
Well, this is hysterical, is that after this happened, the Browns are notorious for not being a great organization. They've been one of the probably worst run American sports organizations in the last 30 years. And there's a funny tweet from Deion about 2021 that said, man, if I'm an NFL quarterback, there's one place I am not going, and that's the Cleveland Browns. And,
And
it went crazy viral the next
And
day.
his son ended up getting drafted by the Browns, correct?
And his son, fifth round.
So, by the way, terrible sports team, but the fans, have you ever been to the dog pound? It's crazy. These
Nuts.
are people, I lived in Cleveland
Nuts.
for 4 years. We would go to NFL games in November. There'd be 7 feet of snow, and they'd be out in the Muni lot outside of First Energy Stadium, was what it was called at the time, wearing shorts and drinking beers
Maniacs.
at 7 o'clock in the morning tailgate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cleveland Brown fans are one of the most diehard fans in the country, and it's a shame that they continue to get shit on year after year after year in the NFL.
They need rebranding though. Like, why the hell are they called the Dog Pound? Their mascot name had nothing to do with the Browns. They're called the Browns because Paul Brown's their owner.
Well, he was. Then Art Modell moved him to
Right, in the middle of the night
Baltimore.
to-
Yeah, literally in the middle of the night. I remember growing up, my neighbor was a Cleveland Browns fan. My neighbor's uncle lived at the house. He was a Cleveland Brown fan, and all of a sudden he started wearing purple. And I was like, what's going on with that? And he goes, they moved my team to Baltimore. I'm old. You weren't even alive when that happened.
And to just put a bow on the whole topic, there is one sliver of, good that happened. Shedeur Sanders, where it would have been very easy to sort of hide from the cameras like a lot of guys do and be mad and pissed off on camera. When he did eventually get drafted in the 5th round, he was very gracious.
Good.
Seemed like he might have been humbled a bit by it and was just so thankful and excitable to be drafted, which sort of didn't seem like the way he was going to take it. So hopefully, the weight and the stories and the thing humbled him a little bit. So, we're going to see how it goes going forward.
Let this be his redemption
I hope so.
story.
Well, what's the cool thing about it is that I found myself not a huge fan in the beginning, but based every day afterwards, they'd interview him about it.
Yeah.
And it's got to be embarrassing because you're on camera expecting to be drafted early. Every day, it's in God's hands. I'm okay with it. Wherever I end up, I'm just blessed to be able to play. So I'm sure he probably flipped the way a lot of people feel about him throughout the process. So now it's like build on it, young man, and let's go. He's going into a good situation for him too, where he has the potential to go in there and play where other places he might not have.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Great conversation, Chris. Let's move on to is it biohacking? Biogathering?
Something weird going on with bio stuff. But from footballs to a different kind of orb, let's talk about Worldcoin. Brandon covered this on the show a very long time ago.
The first ever episode of Unusual Suspects.
Really?
We talked about this, yeah.
Well, it's the oldest video on the page. I don't think it was the first episode.
Well, yeah.
because it had
Cigar Lounge with...
it had Vinny hosting.
If you
so
click
it's
on
not
the
the
video
first
tab
episode.
and hit oldest, this is the first one that comes
if you
up.
go to our page and click on oldest, this is the oldest one. And that was like late 2023 probably?
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's recap for anyone who's new to the channel, because I think we had, like 1,000 subs at that point?
Yeah.
So Worldcoin is a cryptocurrency and digital ID created by Sam Altman, the creator of OpenAI and ChatGPT, along with this other guy, Alex Blania, who is the leader of a company called Tools for Humanity. Their project is called Worldcoin. It is a precursor to universal basic income and a bunch of other innovative approaches to cryptocurrency. All that is necessary for you to unlock this technology and access Worldcoin is to let it scan your retina and take a 3D model of your face. So this is the orb. It first went public, I believe, in like the summer of 2023 on a world tour in a bunch of different major cities. These little metal orbs were set up. People lined up for miles around the block to scan this. So you go, you stare into the orb, it takes a scan of your retina, it maps your face, and then it creates your account based on that and gives you free Worldcoin. That's the first weird thing about it. But the point of this is that it's supposed to be, you know the CAPTCHA tests, basically, like would it prove you're human? Click on everything that has a fire hydrant in it, those kind of tests. The point here is that now instead of doing that, you just scan your iris. You let it look at your eye to verify that your identity exists. Right. And it's generating free cryptocurrency for you every time you do it, which is very odd.
Every time you do what?
Every time you let it scan your face and your eye, it's putting free crypto into your account. With the point being, it's meant to further the cause of universal basic income, which is a huge thing for Sam Altman.
So what? It calibrates your measurements and metrics better each time it scans you. Is that why there's an incentive to do it multiple times?
It seems to be the case, but
so they say when the product's free, you're the commodity or something.
Exactly.
So like, when it's paying you to do it, it's probably like a step further than that.
That's what I wanted to get to, because I'll go to this last point, then we can open it up. We talked a couple months ago about 23andMe going bankrupt and a state attorney general's warning, delete your data. We have no idea what they're going to do with this. It seems like 23andMe might actually be selling off data, which I guarantee you they already were long before they went bankrupt, because why would you trust a corporation to have the complete genetic workup on you? But the way that they are turning people into commodities, think about it. These have our thumbprints in them. The newer ones unlock with a scan of your face. Now you can access crypto and digital ID with a scan of your eyeball. 23andMe might be auctioning your DNA off to the highest bidder. They are commoditizing human beings, and in the last few years, there has been this absolute gold rush on biometric data that is a little concerning. And the reason we're talking about Worldcoin now is that Sam Altman just announced that it's about to launch in the US as well. At a press conference earlier this week, he said that it is coming to, I believe, 6 major US cities, including Atlanta, Austin, Los Angeles, Miami, Nashville, and San Francisco. They already have 12 million people registered when this thing was on its world tour a few years ago. But if you look at who invested into this, it gets even more disturbing. They got capital from Andreessen Horowitz, from Reid Hoffman, from the people who run Coinbase. It has like a roughly $1 billion valuation, according to the last available data, which isn't even from within the last 2 years. So there's some big names involved in this thing. And my question to you guys is, why do you think there is now this huge push to get everybody's biometric data available? What are the tech and crypto bros trying to do with this?
Well, they say data's the new oil, and that's because the ability to have all the data or the best data gives you the best AI, and these guys who I keep saying, it's like, you guys ever see the 007 movie, like the new ones with Daniel Craig?
No.
Yeah.
Okay. So remember, there's Spectre, where it's like kind of like the global elite, the cabal, right?
Yeah.
Then you think that spoiler alert, but you think like, oh wow, that's like the top level he'll ever face. But then the next episode, boom, like the tech guy comes in, like just kills all of them, and then he's the new good guy, or he's the new bad guy. So that's what happened, I think, with Davos and the World Economic Forum and those type of people. Like the technocrats, figuratively killed them, and they're the new threat. And I mean, Mark Andreessen, is totally against them. All the tech guys like Peter Thiel are totally against, with Klaus Schwab and the people who wanted to limit the growths and limit carbon and make everything solar and whatnot. But they present a threat of their own and putting us in a digital gulag essentially.
Have you guys ever seen the shows Altered Carbon?
Yes.
And Upload?
No. To both.
Altered Carbon, it's like you were saying, where the elites can pay and afford to live forever, make copies of themselves, so they just live for a very, 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 very long time. Upload is where when you die, you can upload your consciousness to the digital world and live forever. I don't know about that, but based off the first story that we covered in terms of how the grid could get shut down and how we'll need to use Earth's resources and be more in person and have actual skill sets and be athletic and be smart and be resourceful, versus these tech
bros.
Well, no, I think they're geniuses. That's so cool to think of a world where we could do so much more and get to experience so much more because of everything they could do. But I'm concerned that doomsday-ish event could happen, and that won't even be a possibility. So to get this to how far do you go in this tech world to?
I think that creates that. I think that the blackouts could be a way to say oh, we need to centralize everything and make it this way so that never happens again. Because if a scary thing happens, then it's easier to justify a thing that might have sounded crazy or invasive before that. 9/11 with the Patriot Act. Nothing's been the same since the Patriot Act, and Palantir was built on the back of 9/11. Palantir started collecting all of our data after 9/11.
I'm not necessarily scared of anybody collecting my data.
You should be.
Well, I mean, you know, we're already on the internet. Like
But that's like-
everything on the internet
wait.
lives forever. So like,
Would you be scared of people being able to read your mind?
They can't read my mind.
No, I'm saying, would you
Not
be scared?
yet.
Would you be scared of people being able to read your mind? Like, would you like that?
Oh, I think a lot of bad things.
I know.
Yeah, no. And sometimes I say them out loud, and then people look at me like, "What's wrong with you? You shouldn't say that." So yeah, I wouldn't want people reading my
Right.
mind.
It's weird. Like, would it be an effective advertising tool if people could read your mind?
Normally, normally, in order for the public to react to something, right? Like 9/11.
Yeah.
The way that we got the Patriot Act was 9/11 happening. It caused a concern for people to go, no, we need the government to step in and protect us
Yeah.
because these bad guys living in caves 4,000 miles away want to destroy us. So people bought in.
Right.
There hasn't COVID. They got people to comply with COVID,
Yep.
right? But they also had to bribe them. Do you remember when Bill de Blasio was like, oh, I have
Those were
free
vax.
burgers?
For lockdown, they didn't really have to bribe them. Lockdown, they were scared enough, but for
That's true. Lockdown, I
Vaccines?
complied. I complied at first with lockdown, and a lot of Americans did.
yeah.
You didn't?
No,
I got paid to take the vaccine.
really.
My work paid. The job I had at the time was like everybody.
Not
has,
here. Let's be very
Yeah, I
clear.
did.
It's not
This was-
valuetainment.
The job I had before.
We actually pay you
valuetainment.
not to get the vaccine.
I wish I did. I really wish I didn't. My family convinced me. But yeah, so it was this whole thing where they're like, everybody has to, you know, get the vaccine twice in order to like continue working here. And then they're like, well, you can do it during work hours and we'll pay you to go get it. So I went and got it twice.
But so this is kind of like what they did there. There is no major global problem. There's no attack. There's no virus. There's no pandemic to get people to comply. So what are they doing to offer to get people to comply?
They incentivize you
Exactly.
with money because you're getting free Worldcoin. It's now just called World because they rebranded. But the point is, you get your ID verified, and then anytime you want to access the account, it just scans your retina, and you can get in. And they're actually partnering with Visa apparently to create a real world system in which you can convert World over into real currency through the Visa systems, so that you can spend it at the stores.
So
that
it-
are
so
Banks
it-
usually
wait,
hate the
wait.
crypto, so the fact
Yeah.
that Visa's that quick to get in is really concerning.
But
there's
I
two
wanted
different
to touch on
things.
something real quick, Kelly, because this directly pertains to you because you were involved in this. You have to remember that this is OpenAI. This is Sam Altman.
Yeah.
You sat down with the parents of Sushir Balaji, the whistleblower who was saying that OpenAI has been going around copyright law to train its chatbots on protected materials. Think about what they could be doing with biometric data to train AIs. There's all sorts of implications on this. And like Rob was saying, anytime you see them when they're not trying to fearmonger you into something, they're tantalizing you with something great over here. Remember when Metaverse was going to take over everything and like everything was going to move to the Metaverse?
yes, everybody was buy property in the metaverse. It's going to be worth money.
That was dumb.
While everybody was buying property in the Metaverse, and Snoop Dogg bought a mansion, and you could, have your property values increase by how close your meta mansion was to Snoop's. Zuckerberg and Bill Gates were buying up real world property aggressively, including farmland. And nobody talked about that. But while they're like, oh, look, go online, buy this fake thing, buy this non-real asset, they're securing everything behind your back.
Real assets.
First of
Real
all,
assets.
I just want to go back and say the COVID thing is much different than this thing. Like people did the COVID thing so that they wouldn't die and they wouldn't kill their family members.
That's what they were told.
That's why I
wasn't
did
true.
it, because I was forced by my work, by my family. It wasn't about the money for me. It was about the fact that my grandmother lives with us. I don't want to kill her because I physically went to work during COVID. Like I was in an office and I was ostracized because I interacted with people and I didn't stay home. I didn't have a work from home job. So I was told I'm going to kill my grandmother if I don't get this vaccine. So that's different than somebody doing it for money. But buying in a virtual, has anybody ever seen or read the book Ready Player One?
Yes.
Like that's literally what will happen. And everybody lives in stacks and you have no life and you're overweight and you have no skills and you have no friends. And like there has to be a limit, a balance. And like, but I think a lot of people are smart enough not to lean into that fully.
But
They have 12 million people who looked at the orb and let it scan their eyes and their face to access this thing that is supposed to be the building block of universal basic income.
yeah.
We can talk for hours about how terrible an idea UBI is, but the reality is if we're approaching a point where AI and robots are doing everything, then UBI becomes completely necessary because there's no work left for humans to do.
Yeah.
So
an
I think
optimistic
we're
view of that
innovative.
though is that like we just can't imagine the things that will be left for us to do yet. Because like I do think that like I think the best thing in the world would be for things to get to the point where like food, energy, housing, and transportation are like dirt cheap, where it's like everybody in the world could have it because of how easy it is to and cheap it is to produce it. Like there would be no need for crime and like no need for desperation if that was the case, and people would be left to do like above and beyond things they want to do. And like if you want like really serious wealth, then pursue
That's
it.
the most optimistic thing I've ever heard you say.
I say that all
love
the time.
That. I love that.
I've been constantly saying the most important thing is for food, energy, housing to be dirt cheap.
But you don't think somebody would be creative and be like, "Well, I want more, and I
No,
want."
I'm saying like
he has.
once we get that, like then people can decide like, all right, I'm lazy, but and like I'm cool just having the simple things. That's like almost free, so I'm good with it. Or I want cooler things, so I'm gonna try to do cooler things.
So, are you pro UBI?
No, I would rather achieve that through like supply side, like just, like deflationary innovations. The thing where like a TV used to be $10,000.
The same, but yeah.
No, like deflationary, like that's what happened with TVs. They used to be like $10,000, and now we make them more cheaply. So like, why isn't the same thing that happened with the houses? Like because of stupid government
We've
policies.
discussed it before of like what could happen if everybody embraces nuclear energy and we look into desalination for seawater and water
vertical
basically
farming.
becomes a widely available resource.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Chris.
Well, I'd love to know about these 12 million people who are already lined up because
Yeah.
even me, myself, obviously you guys know I'm not as in deep as this stuff as you all are. But I think about last year, I would travel a ton. I was flying back to New York, back to here, back to New York, back to here. And there'd be times I'd be late for the plane. And they'd tell me, come on over here. Just let us
clear.
scan you for
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah.
And so many times I battled with it. Like, am I going to let them do this? And I would never cave. And I'm just like, seems like anybody at this point who's done any semblance of research is going to be hesitant to just jump in line for something like that. There's a video that I saw trending at like a Publix or what we had in New York at Stop and Shop. And there's this lady who's just so excited to scan her thumb and they just charge her card. And she's like, and I'm like, oh, you moron.
Yeah, well, think
like,
you,
how
like,
could,
you,
like,
you
I
kill you with
pay by
convenience.
waving your
Right.
hand or we have
wristbands
the
that-
wristbands.
Yeah,
We have a real ID mandate going into effect in what 15 days.
Yeah.
Where now you must have the government mandated real ID in order to travel by plane or enter a
I
government
think that's
building.
a good idea.
And it's a debatable subject because
share
honestly
data.
it's been in place since 2005, so it's not a great thing to debate now this late in the game.
20 years
Most of our
later.
driver's license are already real ID compliant for the most part,
Yeah.
but it's the constant push of new forms of digital ID and more convenience of, you know what if instead of entering a PIN or using a card, it's just your thumbprint. It's just your retina scan. It's just, your whole biometric workup. It's for your security and convenience mostly. Well, there's always a dark side to that. And like Brandon said at the top of the segment, when you get something for free, you are the product. And right now we are seeing that the tech bros, who are definitely the new global
Top
elite
dog.
power class, are aggressively marketing things that, for our own convenience, allegedly, have us give over more and more of our personal information down to the very building blocks of your body for their own profit in ways they've never explained. So this is kind of concerning, I think.
yeah,
like
it's
sometimes
sad.
when you line up to stare into the future is staring right back at you. And we might not like what we see when we look into that thing.
Maybe a real blackout would be the best possible thing ever if like we just got set back to the Stone Ages.
I kind of think
I think
so.
the what was the guy's name? Ted Kaczynski.
Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber.
Like I think he just like saw it all like because he was like smart enough to like see the Matrix quickly and like that kind of like.
Well, you also know about the MK Ultra stuff and the experiments that he was subjected to at Harvard. He went to Harvard as a teenager.
Yeah.
He was a brilliant man. Terrible guy to receive things in the mail from. But as far as like a genius, he was a certified genius. And then they started testing him with LSD while he was at Harvard. And then he went nuts, moved and built a cabin in the woods and started mailing bombs to people.
So
he
I'm
essentially
saying,
saw a simulation in his head of like where this was going to go. And,
the
like,
Industrial
now it's
Revolution
much
and its
more clearly.
consequences have been disastrous for the human race.
All right, let's move on. We have one more topic we have to quickly hurry through, and I want to
be
spend a
short.
few minutes on this. This is Jeffrey Epstein accuser Virginia Giuffre, who has unfortunately passed away. It happened earlier this week or late last week. Dead of, according to reports, suicide. Kelley, tell us what you know.
So I think she was 41, and she committed suicide. She has, her foundation. She's got, she's helped so many women with what she's experienced. This photo is a picture of her, Prince Andrew, and Ghislaine Maxwell, and everything she's experienced. I know you guys don't know the story. And we were talking to her at one point, weren't we?
We've talked to a few Epstein victims. In
Yeah.
fact, there's one, I'm not going to name her, but I'm on an email thread. It's very interesting. I've been on an email thread. I'm going to search her name real quick. I've been on an email thread with this woman since we first spoke with her about having her on the podcast. And take a look, Brandon, just so you can verify. Look, this was the last email I received, right? Don't say the name out loud. How many other people are CC'd on these emails?
64.
64. And when you click and you open it up, it's like people at The Guardian. At one point, like, these are major book publishers that are in here. There are Gayle King is in this email thread, or an email address addressed to Gayle King. It's very interesting. But this woman has been sending emails every day. 6, 7, 8 emails a night, coming in the middle of the night, because she's hiding out like the Netherlands or somewhere. And these have gone on for months. And do you know when they stopped coming? Last Thursday was the last time I received an email.
Wow.
And it's very interesting that this woman would send 5, 6, 7 emails a day, and now hasn't sent anything for a week and a half.
Since this happened?
Well, what day did Virginia Giuffre die? She died Friday or Saturday? Yeah. So right before Virginia Giuffre was dead, this woman ceased sending emails.
Whoa.
And if I scroll back, I'm talking, it's not like we just started talking. Like, I can scroll back and go all the way back to January of 2024.
And she's asking
for 19 months, she's been sending these emails.
Wow. And
So
she's
there's
asking for press?
She was trying to reach out and tell her story. She claimed that she was sex trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein. But it's just very interesting that this woman, she's got some bold
That's bizarre.
accusations. Part of the reason why we didn't go through with the interview was because when talking with her, we couldn't verify any of the claims that she made. Well, yeah, that's going to be difficult to verify. These things are very well
network.
hidden.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the whole point of it. And so I feel bad for these victims, and specifically the woman that I was talking to. Imagine going through these horrific crimes, being sex trafficked, being abused, having these horrific things done to you, and then you try to tell the world that they happen and no one listens, including us. We didn't listen. We didn't put the interview on. But all of a sudden, these emails stopped right before Virginia Giuffre died last week.
Wow.
So a lot of people are under the impression that she didn't commit suicide. One of them is her father, insists that she didn't die by suicide. Somebody got to her. Another, I think it was 2019, she did a tweet and she had said, I will never, I'm in a great state of mind. I'll never commit suicide. I've told my therapist this, blah, blah, blah. So this right here is the suicide note that allegedly she wrote and left.
Wow, I haven't seen this yet.
So, yeah, so found it this morning. Mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers need to show the battle lines are drawn and stand together and fight for the future of victims. I can't read that.
Is protesting the answer? I don't know, but we've got to start somewhere. To all survive. No, I'm sorry. That just continues.
Yeah.
from
So
her relatives.
it's really, really sad and tragic. And we've seen a lot of whistleblowers over the past, year or two. We've covered a lot of them on Unusual Suspects, just like commit suicide. And we're like, what? Like, it makes no sense. This is someone that, had her foundation, was helping so many young girls and women. And I can't imagine like the PTSD that she has from her experience, but I don't know if I believe or if I can understand it that she did commit suicide. I think maybe she was targeted.
Did you see what happened to her husband right before the thing?
The divorce? Because from the reports that I read, her husband and her had recently separated, and she had lost access to her children.
She had a restraining order against her.
Okay,
So
that I didn't know.
He allegedly
I did not
beat the
research
shit
that.
out of her in January, allegedly, and then in February filed a restraining order against her. And like when she reported it to the police, like she had like a broken rib and a messed up eye. The police ignored her allegedly, and then she was banned from seeing him or contacting him, banned from the kids because he filed a restraining order against her, and like they gave it to him.
See,
But they're-
that would make me think that
at the-
she would commit suicide,
at the beginning
being
of this
taken
month,
away from your family.
She
But
was-
the way that they met though is they met when she was sent to Thailand, like probably from like Epstein sent her there because they would send her there for like to recruit girls. They met at a massage school and got married after 10 days.
So she was groomed. And yeah, so
But
she was bought.
At the beginning of April, there was that whole thing where she was
Hit
in a
by a
car,
bus.
was hit by a bus. She said she was hospitalized
But the parents
with
of
liver failure and had 4 days to live.
Right.
And then
Wait, that was this month?
no, that was at the beginning of
Yeah, we
April.
talked about that. On
April.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, like immediately after she makes all these posts, it comes out, no, she actually isn't in liver failure. She's not going to
She
die.
went home
she
that
was just
day.
hospitalized. She was at home. The family was saying, no, she's actually okay. And
The
then
parents of
then
the
it goes-
kids on the school bus that say that wasn't even a serious accident, that nobody
Yeah.
else got hurt.
Yeah, and the police came out and said that they did an investigation as well and couldn't corroborate her claims. All of it very weird.
Yeah.
But if you were to take a woman and take her children away from her, that does have very devastating consequences to women more so than men. I've never been in a position where I've lost custody of a child. I did win custody of my son. His mother and I have a great relationship, and we're able to make it work now, but we weren't able to do that 10 years ago. It was very difficult on her when she lost custody. I can't imagine going through the woman had a very traumatic life, and that's the saddest part of all this is that it seems like there was no peace for this woman from the age of 15 years old on. Imagine your formative integral years as a teenager, you're getting sex trafficked to princes and millionaires and billionaires around the globe. How do you ever live a normal life like that? So it feels like it's just a very sad ending to a very sad story for this woman.
Well, maybe the people who have control over the situation should release the files and not let her die in vain.
Well, can I say I'm taught, like, I see Cash Patel at UFC fights. I see Cash Patel at sports events. I see Cash Patel riding high, living a nice life. He's the one that came out and said, day one, Epstein file release. And then when people get upset because they're not released, he's like, well, don't get mad at me. It is part of the process. No, it's not part of the process. Part of the process was you saying day one.
Yeah,
you said that. You don't set standards for something you can't keep.
I want to address that.
You know what's interesting too, though, is that you know where she first met Epstein?
At Cash Patel's house.
No.
Okay. I don't know. I didn't know how they tied together.
According to Whitney Webb at Mar-a-Lago when she was 16.
Well, I mean, if you read into the history of Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump's relationship, Donald Trump had Jeffrey Epstein escorted off the property and banned from Mar-a-Lago after he found out that Jeffrey Epstein was perving on the young ladies that worked at Mar-a-Lago. I don't know. I mean, I could see how that happens. You know how close the house was that Jeffrey Epstein had to Mar-a-Lago? Miles.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden somebody buys that property and demolishes it. Nobody's ever dug into the
island?
Fuck the island.
New Mexico.
We know about the island. The New
ranch,
Mexico ranch.
Where he was trying to clone himself.
Yes, where he was doing medical experiments trying to make more little perverts of Jeffrey Epstein's to live on
Rob,
forever.
I want to go back to what you were saying, like directing that criticism at Cash Patel. You guys talked about it on PBD podcast of giving Trump a grade on his first 100 days. Patrick just put out a video the other day talking about his rating of Trump's performance, gave him a C-. And a lot of people were furious about it. And you see, anytime there's this criticism of what Trump has and has not done yet, it's like, well, just give him time. Just give him time. Guys, we are 100 days into the second Trump administration.
Yeah.
This is not his first time around. And we do not have unrealistic expectations about when these things are going to happen. We are not the ones who said day one Epstein file release. That was Cash Patel. That was Pam Bondi. That was Trump himself who said, I will declassify 9/11. I will declassify JFK. I will declassify Jeffrey Epstein. None of which have produced the promised results that he himself set. So when you say,
and Glenn Beck also came on and said 10 days it's going to come out.
And it's like,
I get it.
give him
It's not
time. Give him time. How much time?
And didn't they make everything worse by giving something, but it wasn't like nearly what was expected?
Well, they had
so
the
like
binders come out and they gave it to a bunch of right-wing influencers. And even that seemed like a slap in the face. And to Connor's point quickly, you talk about the grade that we've got. We've never gotten so much press for our podcast since we have the past 3 days. MSNBC releases a video. I give it a C+. Pro-Trump media figures criticize President Trump's first 100 days. In there, they refer to the BBD podcast because it's specifically about that as and I quote, popular pro-Trump podcast. Then there was an article that came out in Bloomberg this morning. The MAGA cheering squad is losing faith. And in it, they refer to the BBD podcast as, and I quote, a group who could only be described as MAGA bros criticize Trump. Okay, maybe we are MAGA bros. Yeah, we're criticizing him because there were promises that were made that have not been kept. He has kept some important ones. Securing the border, you get an A on that.
More important ones, I would argue.
I disagree 100% because if Israel is the reason behind Jeffrey Epstein And the Mossad, if Jeffrey Epstein was an agent of the Mossad and working for Israel to blackmail United States politicians by having him have sex with underage people on film to compromise them, that is the biggest scandal that has ever happened to this country. And we have every right to invest. At this point, there's only two reasons why they won't release it. Donald Trump is either on camera having sex with an underage girl, and they have that in the files, or Israel has compromised the United States of America, and nobody wants that information to get out. But in my opinion, my view, that's the only reason why they're not releasing it. Otherwise, release the fucking files, and we'll see it.
Yeah, well said. Because like, there's no indication that that's not still going on today. Like Glenn Beck literally said he talks to Congress people. They won't even talk to him inside because they're afraid of the CIA.
Look at what happened to Thomas Massey. He comes out and says that every single member of Congress has an AIPAC representative that they have to report to, and then his wife mysteriously dies and nobody even talks about it. And now everybody on the right is turned against Thomas Massey.
Right.
Well,
very interesting.
Back to your point about like all the people that covered the podcast. Did you ever think that Adam Sosnick would be on MSNBC as the pro-Trump MAGA
as a MAGA
guy?
bro?
Exactly. But that's the whole point. They're trying to use it as, some gotcha moment of, look, MAGA's losing faith. No, we're not. But our criticism is that Trump hasn't done enough of the things he said.
Yeah.
I am fully on board and fully pleased with the efforts and deportation.
He's signed 142 executive orders.
I could go sign 142 pieces of paper at my desk right now. It doesn't do anything.
He started the.
We don't even have plastic straws yet.
I don't have a problem with that. You should be loyal to the person that you're serving. You should want to praise them and highlight their good parts. You can also call out their bad parts. And the bad parts are the transparency that we were promised has not been delivered. The border is secure. We're getting rid of criminals. We're sending people who are here illegally back to the countries they came from. That's great. In addition to that, I want the JFK files released in its entirety. I want the RFK files released in their entirety. I want the Epstein files released in their entirety. Open an investigation into 9/11. Open an investigation into COVID. Why are these things not being done?
And as you said
investigate
earlier,
the Bush family and the Clinton. What happened to throw her in jail? You know,
let's take over now.
The
I'm going to the Capitol.
The sick, twisted shit the Clintons have done. You said because she'd be in jail. Why'd you back off that? Like, all this bullshit talk.
And like you said earlier,
priorities are like getting rid of the people who are destroying the world. Like, there's 500 people.
I don't think it's the Venezuelan migrant that's selling fruit on the side of 95 that is going to be the downfall of this country. I do believe it's going to be our politicians being compromised.
Yep. Fine. Okay, we got to wrap up.
Even optically, like you said earlier, if you're not doing stuff, you can't be showing up at these public events, look like you're out having a good time and taking all the perks in of the position while you're not delivering on things that you said you were going to.
No, it's a bad optics, and you look at it and it makes me now not like Cash Patel.
It's tough.
When I see him out enjoying UFC, and I'm going,
100%.
Why are you not working and busting your ass to get these files?
I think I tweeted just that.
You know what Cash Patel had plenty of time to do is make statements saying the United States unequivocally stands with India in its conflict with Pakistan.
You know what? Now I don't.
Well, you know what? That's actually not true because the U.S. has always said we are completely neutral on the India-Pakistan divide. We will mediate and we will help in whatever capacity is necessary to stop these two from going to war.
Yeah.
Well, now that they're about to go to war, the Indian head of the FBI suddenly stands up and says, no, America is with India. No, we're not.
Just build our
Cash
iPhones.
Patel does not get to make those declarations. But suddenly, I guess we picked a side, which is almost like a textbook case of why foreign people should not be allowed to bring their interests into the U.S. government to dictate our policy.
Yeah.
All right, well, that is it for today's show. We are out of time, but thank you for joining us. For Chris, Brandon, Connor, and Kelley, make sure you subscribe to the Unusual Suspects channel if you have not done so already. Make sure you like today's video, and make sure you join us again next Wednesday, 6 p.m., right here on the Unusual Suspects channel. Vinny will be back with a bunch of great news stories for you guys. Until then, thank you for watching. Take care. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.